Good morning. How are y'all doing? Thank you for coming to BSides Nashville 2015. Welcome. I am Jeff, and I've organized 2 BSides security conferences. Thank you. Like I said, I'm Jeff. I'm known as Digi-Ears on Twitter, and I'm also the treasurer of the new corporation in Tennessee that is BSides Mid-TN. We are the corporate umbrella that is going to be putting on BSides Nashville for now. I have a few general announcements, a few things that I want you guys to know about, pointing out a few extra events, a few things that you're going to need to know, and then I'm going to be handing it off. And eventually, we'll have Trey Ford up here for our keynote, which I'm very happy he's here. Could you give him a round of applause? All right, first things first, to know who's in charge, look for the red shirts. We will not survive the day, but we know the answers. We know where you can go and how to get there. Also, the other important thing is the bathrooms. The bathrooms to the right, just around the corner, on the way to the fishbowl. The fishbowl is our playground. That is where we have the SCADA lab. We have the Minecraft village where you can come up. We have workstations set up so you can play Minecraft. We're going to have a competition in Minecraft. It will be awesome. There will be kids there. You're going to have to ask them to, keep it to a half an hour playing time. But you're all welcome. If you have a laptop with Minecraft and an account, please log in. We have a local server that's been set up special by some Lipscomb students, and apparently it is awesome. We also have the Lockpick Village, and we have the Millers here demonstrating the Rachel Pi that's going to be deployed in Africa. And it's also very cool. You'll want to see that hardware in action. Other things, scheduling-wise, lunch will be out in the hallway, set up on tables at no later than 12:45. It'll be Martin's Barbecue again. It will be awesome. If that is not your flavor, then the cafeteria is actually very good, and Finn knows where it's at. There's lots of offerings. It is a short distance away. Also, across the street, there's a Subway still? Okay. There's a Subway and a coffee shop. So there's plenty of food options here, but we will be feeding out there in the lobby. You are free to roam anywhere on the building, outside. It's going to be a gorgeous day. Please, go outside and get some sun. And then, at 2 o'clock, the next track starts up. So you have plenty of time to socialize. The only place we ask you not to bring any food in is this room and into the fishbowl, all right? Because this is barbecue. Stuff gets messy. We have a couple giveaways. Thanks to No Starch Press, we have books, and they're awesome books. We're going to give away a couple. The 2 contests that we're going to announce, there is a dry erase board in the SCADA and Rachel Pi area. There'll be markers up there. If you're just an artist that loves dry erase as your medium, then take a picture and tweet it out with the hashtag BSides Nashville, or BSides Nash, sorry, and we'll tag it, we'll retweet it, and then at the end we'll decide who's got the best. You'll get a book. Also, there will be a competition posted in Minecraft. So you get your licks in, there'll be someone monitoring it the entire day, and I think at least the most creative construction that's there, and maybe who's the epic warrior in PvP also will get a book. All right?
No starch coupons, they'll be at Reg
At lunch.
Buy lunch.
Okay. Yes. Also, thank you to No Starch. They gave us discount coupons. You can have a code, and you get 30% off a purchase online thanks to them. After party information. There will be an after party, and it will be awesome. It again will be at Belcourt Taps, and not only will be there beverages, there will be food, and it will be a lot of fun. Again, it's the deck. It's going to be gorgeous. It will be a perfect ending to the day. We want you all there. It is sponsored, and also we have a lift code from here to there. It'll be a $20 credit. It's BSides Nash. And if you carpool with another person, one will get you there and one will get you back. You'll be taken care of for your ride there and back. It's not far. There also in your brochure, there is a map on where you need to go. So, the big thanks. These guys. These are the staff that have worked since September in order to get BSides Nashville off the ground. Almost every Wednesday, we have met, we have argued, we have agreed, and we've put this on for you. So our next thank you is to you, the attendees, because we would not do this if we didn't think you would come, just like the ball field. So it's an older man reference, sorry. Also, we want to thank our platinum sponsors, especially Qualis and LBMC and Lipscomb University. And Finn Breland is the representative of Lipscomb. He'll be up here in just a moment. They have been extremely generous. All of our sponsors have been awesome because as much as we would want to put this on, if we didn't have the money to do it, we couldn't. So we want to give a big shout out and a thank you to all of our fine sponsors. Would you give them a round of applause, please? Another person we have to thank is, well, the Security BSides community in general. Representative, of course, Jack Daniel, he's down here. Please give him a thanks for all the work he does. If you can't spot him, you need to look a little harder. Okay? Also, in the local community, Freaknik and the Nashville 2600 and Tillman Lesher have been very helpful, and we want to say thank you very much for their help. And these cool staff and speaker badges were made by Freedom Awards. And if you want any information on how to get these, please ask any of the staff. Again, red shirts will survive the day, but that's it. That's all we'll guarantee. Also, we want to thank Trusted Sec for providing Adrian, Iron Geek Crenshaw, for doing all the recording. He is the man, once again. And again, thank you. If you have any questions, concerns, complaints, if there is something that seems out of whack, please see a red shirt. There are security people around. There is campus security as well. This is a very safe place. But if there's an issue, red shirts, okay? We'll die fixing the problem for you. All right, I would like to welcome Finn Breland up to the podium. Sorry, Finn.
Oh, you're good. We can stand up here together.
Yeah,
if you'll,
sure.
Yeah, okay, cool. Hey guys, I'm Finn Breland. Didn't think I'd ever be as excited to hear my name associated with corporate umbrella before, but here I am. So I didn't know we were tossing that around. I work here in the College of Computing and Technology. My office is actually over there, kind of behind the fishbowl, and I'm the secretary of the BSides Middle Tennessee organization as well. So there you go. That's my logo in the middle. So you might wonder why is a university sponsoring, an InfoSec con, and other than just to make the network admin very angry, we have some other reasons as well. He hasn't spoken to me since, but it's okay. So, and there was a fishy email coming around this morning. I hope it wasn't one of you guys. He will track you down, but we'll talk about that later. That's a true story, actually. But anyway, why we're here, more importantly, Lipscomb College of Computing and Technology has made a huge investment in our workforce development around Middle Tennessee. That includes 10 bachelor's degrees in technology. Information security is one of them, things like data science, IT management. We're really trying to get our thumb on the pulse of what's going on, which is why it's so important for us to be a part of hosting the conversation here on campus that you guys are having. So even if you don't see yourself as a part of the education of young minds in technology, you are, okay? You'll see folks from the college, students helping out with the Minecraft stuff, students sitting in on your sessions. So we're really excited, not just because we teach those things, but because you guys teach those things as well, and we'd love to have you here as a part of the community. So Lipscomb College of Computing and Technology loves to be a part of that community. If there's any way that I can be of help in kind of tying you guys either to students or vice versa, just getting you guys some free space to kick around on campus and you know, host things like this. We love doing those things, and it's part of who we are. So, anyways, all that, oh, and I should mention also, we do have master's degrees in information technology with the concentration in information security, data science, and software engineering. If you want any information about that, we've got the good old sponsor table in the back and all that good stuff. So, now for the fun part. I get to tell you what you're not allowed to do here. Yay! Okay, so now everyone's going to tune me out. Lipscomb University has been around since 1891. We are a Christian-founded and still a Christian university. And to that end, there is typically no smoking and no drinking on the premises. So if you would be so kind as to sort of observe those rules while you're here. Technically, if you would like a smoking area, it is outside of the U by Belmont Boulevard out there, if you can step out to the street to smoke. So. If you are so inclined. And if you are so inclined to drink, please don't, all right? So also be mindful, as you saw, there are little improv kids running around. They are guests of the university as well. We have students here, so just be mindful of, you know, being good spirits and being kind to all those you encounter today. We know you will be, but we're just excited for that. So that's all I've got to say. If you're angry about those rules, talk to Lauren. Yeah, they don't know that yet. All right, and on that note, let's welcome Lauren up here. All right.
Okay. I'm short. Will it go low enough? There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm Lauren. Also, no. Hi. Hi. I've been running an InfoSec con for. Yeah, also known as Low Loss on the interwebs. I am a corgi-loving herder of cats, and I also have a FSMA specialty for those who care, and don't worry, I drink about it all the time. I'm also the president of BSides Middle Tennessee, which I have trouble still remembering to say. So this is us. We are here. We are putting on our second BSides. So this is who we all are, as he showed earlier, so I get to skip that part. Yes! This year when we decided to do this a second time, we had to think about what is our vision and our outreach. Last year it was, can we pull this off? This year it's, let's do this. How are we going to do it? How are we going to grow? And how's it going to work? I'm going to have to read this because we put a lot of thought into this, so I'm apologizing now. We wanted to provide an event where the InfoSec community and those interested in InfoSec within the region can gather to learn and teach each other. In that, we want to reach beyond our direct community and include those in systems and development as well as students of all fields. So that's what we did. And by looking at this year's metrics, that's great. It looks like that's what we did. Those of you who filled out our little survey, who weren't all afraid that we were going to use it and sell it to the NSA. There was only about 7 of those who didn't fill it out, so I was quite happy. We have students, we have C-level, we have a lot of individual contributors, the whole gambit, lots of different industries. So please get out, talk to people, see what other people know and what they're learning and why they're here. If we could see a show of hands, whose first BSides is this? Yeah, more than half. Wait, keep your hands up. Whose first con is this? Yeah, all of you guys, thank you. So, and as we can also see, more than half of our attendees who answered our survey, so we do know that it's a little skewed, are locals, and that is what we are going for. We want people we love the people who fly in, we got somebody here from England, love that he's here. Oh, and he wasn't lying. We do have an Australian. There were 2 from overseas. But we've also got a lot of local people. So that means the people that you are sitting next to, the people that you don't know, chances are they live in this area. And if you live in this area, you probably want to get to know them too. This is your community. So these are the people we want to know. So there's that. So last, I think, I'm sorry. If you've seen me today, I am running around and my notes aren't in the best format. Those of you who haven't been to a conference before, or haven't been to a BSides before and don't know about the global organization, please check out Security BSides website, securitybsides.org. BSides.org. Yes. There you can see a list of all of the different B-sides that are going on because we all have to get approval from them before we can put one on. I do know there was one coming up in Knoxville in not too terribly long, and some of those people are here, so they may say hi. And if you are from the Knoxville area, there is that. So, oh, that is my last slide. Okay. Just so you guys know, that's right, there's 3 total. So you guys know we are a nonprofit within the state of Tennessee. We are going to try and become an official 501(c) company. We are not here for the money. We are not here to put on a conference and become rich and famous. We are here to share information and to bring people together. We felt that there's a number of conferences in Nashville, but we felt that BSides was one that also needed to be in Nashville and in this area for this region. So that is all of the business stuff. Now I get to introduce Trey. Okay. So Trey Parker is the global security strategist at Rapid7. In the past, he was the general manager of Black Hat Global Events and has served in project management, incident response, and security engineering roles. We are very honored to have him here and glad that Rapid7 let him get away. So without any more ado, there's Trey.
For a quick demonstration of how hard computers can be, I'm going to hook this thing up and try to type my password in. Wow, that's so long. There's a mouse. No. I want that thing. Thank you. Good morning. Sorry for the delay. My name is Trey Ford. I'm the Global Security Strategist at Rapid7. And I fancy myself an aviator. Many in this room, cybersecurity professionals. Still sounds awkward to say, doesn't it? Information security professionals, many of you. It's kind of that funny feeling when someone calls you a pilot. You have an identity. You have an idea of what that means. But I fancy myself an aviator. I'm sure you can appreciate this. I see a lot of parallels between information security, the work that we do on the internet, and the history of aviation, both rapidly advancing fields. Something that's interesting, and when you think back to the earliest chapters of InfoSec, we didn't have full-time jobs. There was no chief security architect, there was no CSO. The first DEF CONs, the first Black Hats, very few people had full-time jobs in InfoSec. Even today, in aviation, there's a small populace of professional pilots. Everyone else has a real job, another job, something they do to do this. When I thought about becoming a pilot, when I thought about the process of what it would take to become a pilot, the day I became an aviator, I had a moment of clarity where I realized that I was joining something with a rich history. I was standing on the shoulders and often the toes of those that came before me. I was out there when I got my private ticket, when I got cleared. I was standing there with Glenn Curtis, with Amelia Earhart, with Chuck Yeager, John Boyd, the Red Baron, Buzz Aldrin, Buzz Lightyear, Snoopy, and my dad. I had a moment of clarity, and the first realization was this. My place in this community was an honor and a privilege. The things that I did weren't just exercising my newfound freedoms, freedom away from gravity. Oh dear, yes, the laws of physics still apply. But getting down low, buzzing houses, being places I shouldn't, violating laws, boundaries, or the federal aviation regulations. And let me tell you, it's an unabridged, dictionary-sized book. It didn't just affect me. It didn't just affect my newfound freedoms and liberties. It affected the reputation of my entire community. It affected the way that they looked at flying. It affected how the community looked at us as aviators. Joining those ranks required a commitment. It required a commitment to continue studying. We spent a lot of time studying, staying current with new laws, with new technologies, and studying the crashes and the other incidents, the things that happen, not just at our home airfields, not just with our own aircraft, but everything that happens around the globe. Indecision, lack of deliberate movement, mistakes on my part could affect the access of my community to the passion that binds us. I'll never forget my first flight, having gotten my private pilot ticket. It was a Saturday. It was July 3rd. Let's call it 4:45. We pull up. I had just done my check ride about a week before. Mind you, I failed my first check ride. I was scared to death to take this woman back up. I passed the check ride. A week later, my neighbor, knowing that I go flying as often as I can in preparation to pass this test, my neighbor decides he wants to go with me. So he jumps in the car. We roll to the airport. We're at Palo Alto Airport. Anybody seen maps like this before? It's a very different map. There's a lot going on there. I put something of a conspicuous orange arrow there to point at Palo Alto. There's a whole lot going on there. It was a beautiful day. Barometer was 29.94 inches of mercury. It's a little above standard pressure. The skies were almost completely clear. There was a sturdy wind, not strong winds, certainly not windless. There's always a wind around the San Francisco Bay. About 15 miles an hour, just about 10 degrees off of runway heading. You always land and take off into the wind. So this is a great thing. In aviation circles, we might call this severe clear. When it's this sunny, the ground heats unevenly. So it gets a little bumpy as you go over different colors of ground. Who knew? Visual regulations prevailed. I am cleared to fly in visual flight conditions. That means I can maintain visual separation from other aircraft. There was a time when aircraft didn't have radar. We didn't have air traffic control separating planes in the sky. So I took Tom and we walked around the airplane. We have a checklist for the pre-flight. We're looking at the sides of the plane, making sure everything that's screwed on and bolted on is where it's supposed to be. We're checking gas levels. We're checking that everything's still bolted down. We untie the airplane, we climb in. We start the pre-flight checklist. I fire up the radio, look outside, call clear, I start the engine. We're all fired up, ready to roll. Palo Alto is a towered airport. On this day, July 3rd, it's July 4th weekend. You know, time now is about 5 o'clock. I call it on the radio. Palo Alto Tower, Cessna 733 Zulu Kilo, parked at Romeo 22, request taxi to run up runway 31. Well, that's funny, nothing. Palo Alto Tower, Cessna 733 Zulu Kilo, comm check, over. Nothing. Flip channels over to the gas truck. That guy's always there. Fuel service, Cessna 733 Zulu Kilo, parked at Romeo 22. Comms check. Palo Alto Airfield's funny. In the middle of the San Francisco Bay, we've got a lot of traffic. There are days where you are 10 planes deep waiting in line to take off. And there are days it's a ghost town. There's nobody there. It's a holiday weekend. I'm probably by myself. It's 5 o'clock. The tower closes at 6. Maybe it's just me. When a towered airfield doesn't have an operational tower, it turns into an untowered airfield. So you do this process of self-announcing. Since I can't see behind me, I need to let the other aircraft know, and there's a movement pattern across the airfield. I call out, Palo Alto traffic, Cessna 733 Zulu Kilo at Romeo 22, taxi to run up runway 31, Palo Alto. Announce open and close with the airfield, let everybody know what I'm doing, and off we go. There's something very scary at an airfield when you're taxiing along. Now mind you, you pedal like you steer with your feet. And your gas is with your hand. You're squeezing the gas in and out. You've got this yoke thing, but that just kind of does this stuff on the wings. Your plane doesn't respond, so you're trying to pedal with your feet and steer. And if you see a car or a kid running across, you don't like it like surprises in airplanes. Surprises are very bad, so you're very deliberate in communicating where you are. Get to the run-up area, no traffic. Man, this place is a ghost town, so we do a run-up check. This is where we check the engine, make sure we don't have fouled spark plugs. There's a whole list of things that we check on the engine. Finish, we announce, checklist complete. One more time. Man, if there's somebody in the control tower, they're gonna be real excited. Palo Alto Tower 733 Zulu Kilo at run-up, request taxi runway 31. Nothing, go back to Unicom, the broadcast frequency. Palo Alto traffic, mind you, I'm now accelerating, stepping on the wheel so my airplane will turn, and I'm looking at the skies for anything I can see. Palo Alto traffic, Cessna 733 Zulu Kilo. Traffic, please advise. Palo Alto. Ronry. I was so lonely. There's nobody talking to me. Tom, he's over here saying, man, this is so cool. I'm over here freaking out. I was an aviator. The skies were mine. Taxi onto the runway. Palo Alto traffic, Cessna 733 Zulu Kilo. Taking off runway 31, we're going to do right closed traffic, staying in the pattern. Palo Alto. Lights, camera, action, go. Lights, you make sure your lights are on. Camera, you turn on your little beacon, a transponder, so when radar hits you, it comes back with an ID number. So they know it's you. They can keep track of you. Because surely someone out there is paying attention. Lights, camera, action. Mash the throttle. Here we go. We're accelerating 35, 40, 45 knots. Control surfaces are now effective. I can straighten out and stabilize that slight crosswind. 55 knots. I'm nosing back, lightening the load on the front of my gear. 55, 60, 65 knots. We call this the ultimate takeoff performance because you're not jerking the plane off the runway, you're just easing up. Palo Alto has a noise abatement procedure, so I deviate just a little bit to the right of this runway. There's houses there. They're very angry people. It turns out we have to avoid them. So we go over this way. We're out over the bay, climbing. Now, Palo Alto's like at 6 feet off of sea level. We're right on the water. So we're climbing up off the bay, 500, 600 feet. I'm turning right crosswind to downwind. I'm now parallel, going the opposite direction of the runway. Up to pattern altitude at 800, start backing up the throttle, pre-landing checklist. Start slowing things down, adding in some flaps, turning my landing light back on. Palo Alto traffic, Cessna 733 Zulu Kilo, downwind for runway 31. Full stop, Palo Alto. I haven't seen a stinking airplane anywhere except the big heavyweight airplanes coming in to land at SFO, and they're thousands of feet above me. There's a spot on short final. So you get out down towards Moffett and you're turning in. You're flying over that amphitheater there. You're on short final coming in. There's some water. There's some swampland. They advise you of bird activity on and in the vicinity of the airport. These things are flying missiles designed to attack aviators. It's a little choppy with crosswinds, but that's okay. Zulu Kilo's got a short takeoff landing kit. I come in with extra flaps and extra power. I've got about a 15-knot headwind. I'm probably only doing 40 miles an hour over the ground. You feel like you could run that fast. So we're just coming in. He's like, man, this is awesome. This is awesome. Palo Alto traffic. Cessna 733 Zulu Kilo, short final runway 31, full stop, Palo Alto. It's important. When you become an aviator, you learn your radio voice. Sounds official, it's important. About the time I'm crossing the threshold, the very end of the runway, and I'm coming in to start my flare to land, I'm backing it out 65, 60, 55, 50 knots. Now, mind you, when you get down close to the ground, things start happening fast. That's the danger part. When you're up in the air, you've got potential energy. If the engine quits, you're in a big glider. When you're down close to the ground, you want things to feel like slow motion. I will never forget this feeling because it went from slow motion to not slow motion. What in the... My phone's ringing. I didn't skip this item in the checklist. For small planes, we really don't care about you using your cell phone when you're doing 400 miles an hour at 30,000 feet. It wears out your battery, and all these cell phones are trying to find towers. But in a little airplane, it doesn't matter. Why is my phone ringing? This is very strange. Everybody knows I'm flying. I like Twitter. I pull out my phone and hand it to Tom as we're taxiing out. He answers the phone. He's like, "It's for you." I'm like, "Well, of course it is. It's my cell phone." In aviation, we talk about crew resource management. When you're in my plane, you are a part of my team. I am the captain, and I am responsible for your soul. Trey's the control tower. What? You pull your headset away from your ear, you stuff the phone in, and you use the hands-free technology. Because the only thing I can hear on my radio is my passenger. "Hi, who is this?" I don't remember the guy's name. Let's call him Ryan. "Hey, this is Ryan. Is this Farrell Ford?" My name's not really Trey. Farrell's my legal name. So when I hear that, I know things are really serious right now. "Yes, sir. How may I be of service? By any chance, are you in an airplane right now?" "Yes, sir." In case you don't hear that bzzz in the background, a big fan up in front of me. 733 Zulu Kilo?" "Yes, sir." "I'm going to need you to pull off the runway." "Sir, I think I can accommodate that request." I taxi off the end of the runway. "Ryan, I got to ask you, how come you're not answering me on the radio?" Ryan answers very quickly. "I have been. Why haven't you been responding to me? Sounds like we've got a failure here to communicate." "Ryan, stand by. I'm going to recycle the power on my radio." Now, this is very important and probably is the only reason I'm still an aviator, all right? Thumb up, do this with me. Thumb up, you grab the little dial, you go click, click, thumb right back to 12 o'clock. Release your thumb, watch it reboot. Pray. So this Garmin, I think it was a 430 model, really cool technology. We know what Garmin is. It's a GPS based out of Kansas City, where I grew up. It also has a radio system built into it. So I can tune into weather and stuff. I can also tune into control towers. I'm on the right frequency. I'm looking at things. I'm like, "Do they change the tower frequency?" I didn't see a NOTAM or anything notifying me of this. It comes back online. I'm listening to the control tower talking 5 airplanes out of circling and lining them up to land. And I'm watching people bring their airplanes in on my empty airfield, making faces at me like, "Dude." You see, we have technologies that are built in layers. And these technologies are layered defenses, layered communications media. Were designed for failure. What's interesting about this is on that day, sunset was going to be closer to 8 o'clock at 300 degrees. And from the position of the run-up at the end of 3-1, the sunset and the tower are about like this. So back before we had radios, they used to wave at each other, and that's how they communicated. Then they got flags, right? And then they went Buzz Lightyear, and they would blink each other to death. Wink, 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 wink. That's like not Morse code. They're like red light, green light. That's literally the backup technology. Guy's like, how come you didn't respond to my light signals? Dog, do you know you're in front of the sun? It looked like this. Mr. Ford, I'm going to ask you to put your plane away. We're going to need to fill out some paperwork. Yep. Glad to be of service. I'll be right there. I put the plane away. Tom's like, does that mean we're not going flying? I'm like, oh, we flew. We're done flying. And it was awesome. So get back on the phone with Ryan. He's like, okay, I need your pilot ID number. You remember when you got your little paper license, like after you passed your driver's test, you don't have the plastic card? And you had that little temporary number that came with your temporary driver's license? That's what I had for my pilot's license at the time. I didn't have, I gave him an imaginary number. I didn't have a real number. I gave him my contact information. He's like, look, man, this is my first day in the control tower by myself. So you're not saying we could, like, forgive this? Oh, no, this is recorded. All right. He's like, look, you're probably going to get a call from my tower manager and the airfield manager, and if you're really unlucky, you're going to talk to FSDO. I don't speak Klingon, dog. FSDO? Yeah, that's the FAA's Flight Standards District Office. Realization number 2. This is a whole lot bigger than you and me. I drove Tom home because Tom lived through the wall at my home. I sat down on the couch. I called my dad and asked, what have I done? The fact is, you and I have had those moments, haven't you? It could be as simple as getting in an argument about how important pushing a patch is right now. So then we start getting clever. We work for angles, right? Social engineers, we're security people. We're very smart. So it's Sunday, and I know the airport manager's not going to be in her office. So I leave her a nice voicemail like, hey, my name's Farrell Ford. You're probably going to find some reports and stuff from Ryan, a very nice gentleman doing a solid job up in the control tower running a really tight ship there at Palo Alto Airfield. You should be very proud of that young man. There's going to be some kind of report that, you're going to feel some kind of way about, and I just, I'd like to connect with you, kind of collect any thoughts or wisdom you might have to share with me, because, I really value the privilege I have of flying. I'm so dead. She calls me back. She's like, that was the sweetest voicemail I've ever heard. I asked her point blank, did it work? She said, nope. Young man, you're going to get a phone call from the San Jose office of the Federal Aviation Administration. The Flight Standards District Office investigates all occurrences against airspace. You, sir, participated in what we define as an uncleared departure in a controlled airspace. And it's at their discretion to determine how many lives you've put at risk and whether or not we're going to be able to permit you to continue flying. I really appreciate your grace and time communicating this to me. I just want to be a part of this, and, I'm very thankful. And is there any other wisdom or things I should be thinking about? Because I got to be honest, I'm a little nervous right now. Please show me some mercy. You might want to take a lawyer. Thank you so much. I'm working at McAfee at the time. I rolled down to Santa Clara, driving past my home airfield, Moffett Airfield. You're always dreaming of seeing a space shuttle coming in. I'm telling you, I still haven't seen one there yet. I get to my office. It's a Monday. It might have been a Tuesday. I get a phone call. Hi. There are no feds in this room, right? FBI, none of that kind of nonsense. They have a particular tone. I don't know how they do it. It's like the agent Mr. Smith in The Matrix. Hello, Mr. Ford. I have a file before me that we need to discuss, so I'd like to let you know we're opening an investigation. Need you to come by the office. Awesome. Gives me a date and time. What if I'm out of town? No, I don't think that's even a consideration. Yes, sir, I'll be there. Anything else I can do? Nope. See you then. Call Dad. You're not going to believe this. He's like, yeah, I can. I've been talking to the guys. You're in trouble. I'm like, thanks, Dad. There's a brotherhood and community that you just have to appreciate that keeps you grounded. One of the things that we need to be aware of, one of the things that makes aviation such a magical pursuit and passion is that we run everything to the ground. Root cause analysis is so important. Aviators know that there is safety and certainty from knowing. Now, knowing's a funny word. There's kind of a magical aspect to it. There's this magical point in time where you cross this imaginary line where you look at the data, you have the data, but you have faith in the data. Well, I'm looking at these HTTP logs, and I know exactly what happened. Well, of course you do. I know exactly how much this airplane weighs. I know what the prevailing wind is. I know how long my runway is, how tall that wall of trees is. I know exactly how much gas I have in the plane, how much that gas weighs. And I know that if I accelerate to this speed before I yank back on the yoke, I will be capable of climbing the 50 feet to clear the obstacle, nosing down, and still have enough speed to keep my airplane in the air. I know that, right? Right? There's a huge difference between knowing and putting yourself in that situation. You see, as security people, we're really good at knowing. What I think concerns me most about part of where we are today in our chapter of history at InfoSec is we have a lack of dedication to finding the root cause and a lack of dedication to sharing it. And I want to tear into that a little bit further today. I think we have a general agreement, a general consensus, and a general belief on what the right things to do are in our day-to-day practice as we study InfoSec, as we study the organizations we serve, as we look at the challenges we face. But we've not committed to making this information available to others. BSides is amazing because we probably have more data sharing events happening this weekend here than will happen for most of the rest of the year for many of us. Funny thing, this word knowing. Knowing has this magical quantity, and we can dive in just a little bit. Will you guys indulge me? I'm going to kind of jump off the deep end for a minute. I'm going to geek way out. There's something inherently religious the moment knowing involves the idea that being incorrect could cost you your life. And so you want to derive your thought, your ability to know from some authority, some root cause, something that you can sink your teeth in, something that's real. The thing is, we know that there's a rational probability events repeat themselves. So there's random tidbits, but there's useful data points. There comes a point of vulnerability where you put your tail in the seat. You're going to commit to this mission. You're going to commit to this project. You're going to commit to hardlining the sysadmin, telling them you are going to ship this patch in the next 45 days. Really? Smart guy? Want to explain that to me? There's a point where we've had that conversation. Any auditors in the room? I wouldn't raise my hand either right now. It's okay. There's a point where you transition through this spectrum of I've got my information. There's a probability this information is going to be very relevant in my situation, the vulnerability where you put yourself in the seat, where you find out if you've got what it takes, if your authority was correct, if your placement and delivery was correct, if your execution on what you knew to be right was correct, and finding certainty. So I'm going to append realization 3. Knowing depends on hard facts and root cause. Any aviation nuts? Anybody that really enjoys aviation? We got a couple hands, a couple big smiles. All right, we're going to geek out very quickly on the history of aviation. Very quickly, because I want to draw a few parallels that bring me to my point. The first airline was not in the United States. It was in Germany. It was a dirigible. Everyone remember what a Zeppelin does? It's a good time. So we're going to skip that one. We're going to talk about the first fixed-wing airline, the St. Petersburg-Tampa airboat line. Okay, let me get this straight. Humans are now flying in airplanes, and you want me to get in this thing. This thing. This was the first airline in 1914. So let's talk about the evolution of aviation super quickly. 1903, we're all familiar with the Wright brothers, right? There were a bunch of people doing flying things, gliders and such. They took man-powered, manned, English is hard, manned, powered flight and made it real. That was 1903. The next 11 years were a golden era for the innovation of aviation. In 1914 was the start of World War I. So 1914 to 1918 was this window of the World War. It became very evident that the use of planes in a military context would make a lot of sense, right? So a lot of the funding that came into power aviation up to the Wright brothers was the government saying, hey, you know, after the Spanish War, it'd be really great if we could send some eyes out to see where the troops are. But we didn't have radios. Radios weighed between 80 and 100 pounds. That weighed more than the average human did in that day, and they were working really hard just to get one human in the air. So what would happen is the plane would fly down low, close to the troops, and say, they're over there! Because that's a great idea. But this was also an amazing time, because you guys are familiar with the Red Baron, right? How many of you grew up watching Top Gun? You Are My People. Every Friday night with my dad. I think my dad was teaching me aviation and using a very horrible context. Any of you watch The Great Waldo Pepper? Now that's magic. Okay, put this on your Netflix list. I don't know if it's on Netflix, but figure it out. It's awesome. So this was the real magic era, all right? So manned aviation was a thing. Powered aviation was a thing. And after the war, these aces were coming back. They picked up routes. They were flying airmail. This was the age of the barnstormers. This is where Amelia Earhart earned her fame. It was in this window of time that all the records were being smashed continually. This is actually the time when Jimmy Doolittle changed aviation. Do you guys remember Jimmy Doolittle? What's he known for? He bombed Tokyo. He's a hero, and it doesn't diminish it. But to me, he's a hero for a very different reason. You see, when they started moving mail across the United States, they had a path. You remember that map I showed earlier that looked a lot like ARPANET? There was that string across the United States. They had a bunch of these arrows. In the middle, there would be a tower, and they had a little lamp at the top. Turns out people didn't fly much at night, but they wanted to. They got lost a lot. They flied very low. And there was this notion they started losing life because, the mail must get through, right? They would try to fly at night and lose orientation. They'd get out in the middle of nowhere with no light, no stars to see, and they would become disoriented. So Jimmy Doolittle was a really smart guy. General Doolittle, he was Dr. Doolittle. He had this premonition that humans couldn't fly on their own, and we didn't have the systems required to maintain orientation without eyesight. Pilots would become disoriented in the clouds, and they would crash. This is how we lost Kennedy, and he had something that Doolittle helped invent. So he was one that really felt the disconnect between engineering and the pilots, the aviators. They spoke different languages. Engineers are smart people. Most of us in this room fancy ourselves engineers, systems engineers, network engineers. What we do every day is an engineering discipline, yeah? But when we sit down with IT, our concerns are things that we have a really hard time articulating sometimes. They're most concerned about keeping systems up and running. What we're asking for sometimes sounds counterintuitive. You want to take the website down because what? Just a patch? That's going to cost $500,000 for that hour window. Can you use small words and help me understand by talking slowly how that's a good idea? There was a disconnect in this day and age where the engineers and the engineers assumed pilots had to be crazy because if they weren't, they wouldn't fly airplanes. They caught dead a lot. That was bad. So the engineers had solutions, but the solutions were irrelevant because they weren't pilots. Jimmy Doolittle was a mechanic and a pilot, and he went through that process where he had some notion of hard fact, and he had a willingness, that adventure, that sense of adventure that you and I share, to willingness to put himself in the seat. After a couple of amazing feats in aviation, they put him into college. He finished his degree. He went on to MIT, and his master's thesis talked about measurements and acceleration of an aircraft. There's something called a directional gyro and an artificial horizon, these two little instruments you see in front of you. That artificial horizon was unbelievably magical, because when you fly into a cloud, we used to fly by the seat of our pants. That's where this comes from, is the idea is like, okay, I know I'm on a skidding turn. I know that the ground is below me. But when you're in a cloud long enough, things start to spin and you lose your orientation. The word trust your instruments, trust the data, that actually comes back from Jimmy Doolittle. He was the first human to take off in, like, they literally took this plane, blacked out a canopy with, like, I don't know what kind of material. No light came through it. So he's sitting there in the dark looking at his instruments with a little flashlight. And he was the first pilot to take off, fly a 15-mile set course, and come back and land with no ability to see out of the cockpit. That, in my mind, is how aviation was changed. I also blame Jimmy for getting me in trouble that day at Palo Alto Airfield, because there's a lot of airspace now. You see, this airspace was designed to allow, if you look, see those big blue rings? That deals with spheres and access levels in places that I can't fly, because the big jumbo jets with humans, lots of humans, flying very fast, are coming into land at San Francisco International Airport. The little magenta ones down to the side, on the lower side, that's San Jose Mineta International Airport. Up above, that's Oakland International Airport. There was a lot going on. Poor Ryan, in his first day in the control tower, was having a conniption, and justifiably so. Stepping forward in time, the day was October 30th, 1935. We're at Wright Airfield in Dayton, Ohio. The United States military needed a long-range bomber. And there's always a contest for a government bid, and this one wasn't going to be much. You see, this aircraft carried 5 times the payload that they wanted. It would fly faster and roughly 2 times as far as any aircraft before it. This thing was a machine. It had 4 engines instead of the usual 2. On this day, this was the day of the demonstration. They put Boeing's mechanics into the aircraft. The military put their most experienced chief test pilot in the pilot's seat. Beautiful, sleek, gray aluminum aircraft, fired up, rumbles on to the taxiway, fires up all 4 engines, rolls on the throttle, it roars down the runway, smoothly takes off. It climbs sharply to 300 feet, a demonstration of strength and power, at which point she slowly stopped climbing, rolled over on her right wing, and crashed. How can this happen? The headline read, "Too much airplane for one man." Well, maybe the guy needed more training. He wasn't experienced enough to fly an aircraft with 4 engines. No, Major Ployer Pete Hill, who had cleared a whole variety of prior aircraft, he was one of the most experienced aviators in the world, died along with 2 other members of that 5-man crew. This is where Hill Air Force Base in Ogden, Utah comes from. You see, this aircraft was unbelievably more complex than any aircraft before it. How many of you can back up a car? Back it out of a garage. How about parallel park a car? That's right, all of you with driver's licenses. I think that's still a rule. It should still be a rule. You see, flying an airplane actually wasn't a whole lot more complicated than having that level of spatial awareness and input control. This airplane was different. You see, this was far more complex. This had 4 engines. It had variable pitch propellers, so you could adjust the angle of the blade. It had hydraulics. It had new surfaces, control surfaces, so you could safely control the aircraft at higher speeds, terrific rates of speed. It had electric trim tabs to help adjust the pitch and performance and steering in the air. And while doing all of this, Pete overlooked something that he'd never had in an airplane that he'd flown before. You see, there was a little lock that unlocked the trim tabs for the elevator and the ailerons. And so what the elevator does in the back, that's that little vertical blade, it kicks it up and down, which tells the plane to climb and descend, right? Well, if this thing's locked where you're going to climb, what's going to happen is at some point, 4 engines isn't enough to keep you in the air. You're going to lose enough airflow over the wings to create lift. Well, the engines are going as fast as they can. They're going to push. There's the wind carries over the left side of the aircraft. That's kind of how this wind processes. So that left wing's going to have additional lift. It's going to roll over. And there wasn't enough time for him to troubleshoot that, identify that as the plane picked up speed to recover from that dive. Pete Ployer gave his life in service of this country and in service of that community. Later we found out how and why, because they did a very exhaustive postmortem. They identified that there were no mechanical issues with the aircraft, but the lock was left engaged. This man knows more about aviation, more time in seat than anybody. He gave us the checklist. The engineers, of course, no one's going to let a government contract this big go. So they put their smartest in a room. They sat down and they tore this apart and asked, how do we fix this? They gave us the checklist. You see, when the cost of failure on something so small and trivial is so dear, being humble enough to look at a checklist isn't that big a deal, because the cost of failure hurts that much. General Mattis said it's great to learn from experience, but if you learn from someone else's, I've adapted this quote, it's better to learn from someone else's. There's no need to pay for those mistakes with life twice. We love to pick on PCI. We love to pick on regulatory bodies. We love to pick on different checklist audit processes as a profession. And theoretically, I haven't seen the data. I believe it's there. But PCI theoretically has been put together based upon credit card losses, right? Now, I think from an enterprise security standpoint, we shouldn't base our program around protecting just one company or one organization's data set. But what I think we can highlight here is that there's a false economy of lessons, of secrets, lessons that aren't being learned. You guys know what a false economy is? I should probably define that. Have you ever driven across town because gas was 5 cents cheaper a gallon? Or bought the cheaper car and realized I've spent twice the cost of the car in maintenance, service, repairs, and parts? A false economy is an economy that is not true. It is going for the deal only to find out that's the wrong deal. I think in this industry, we have, for a variety of reasons, not shared a lot of information. And there are some jokes I'm dying to make, and I've got to hold off on them. But there are lessons that we're not learning from. There are failures that you are making that you are not sharing with the people next to you. Look to your left and your right. Tell the people next to you, thanks for nothing. So you guys heard in the news just recently when Han Solo crashed his aircraft, right? If you're anything like me, you get the same phone call. What happened? Aviators, everyone knows a pilot. I made this joke in the abstract. You know how to spot a pilot or a PhD, right? Yeah, they'll tell you. As such, since you know a pilot, you're going to call and say, hey, dude, Harrison Ford. Gosh, I wish we were related. Harrison Ford, what happened there? Every pilot on Earth looked at it. He took off from the runway, climbed up to about 800 feet. His engine died. How many of you guys, like small engine mechanics, pretty good, pretty handy with machines? So like you're familiar with the fuel shutoff, right? You have just enough fuel in the tube line and the carburetor to get the engine running, run it for a minute, and then it cuts off. Those of you that mow lawns, you've had this happen to you before with older engines. A lot of people have died flying airplanes. These checklists are designed to teach us these lessons to prevent us from doing this. Not once, not twice, but 4 times in a far simpler aircraft. I'm going to touch everything that can cut off gasoline, or 100 low lead, to my engine. Because we've lost a lot of lives to this one thing. I don't want to believe Han Solo, who flies spacecraft, crashed an airplane for something this simple. I don't want to believe it. I hope it's something else. You got this phone call, didn't you? They got hacked. What happened? They called you. Jack has this challenge. I have this challenge. You see, part of our day job, or at least sometimes, we get the phone call from the press, not just our friends, not just our executives. They want to know what happened. Now understand, when we're laughing about cyber, when we're laughing about people getting hacked, we have one conversation. We have a pretty good idea what that looks like. We try not to victim shame in public, but when Jack and I talk to the media, we have no hard data. Show of hands in this room. TJ Maxx, Heartland Financial, Home Depot, Sony, by the way, our first major cyber war we lost, Neiman Marcus, Target. Any of you know exactly what the contributing factors to those compromises were? Beyond a shadow of a doubt, you have the data. How many of you, conversely, are tasked with protecting companies, sensitive regulatory data sets, or credit card data? I'm in that group. Lord Kelvin. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. You see, there's no excuse in my mind why we can't know what the contributing factors to these failures were. I can't logically get there. I don't need to know what the executives were doing. I don't care to read their email. But when I read about Asiana Flight 214 that crashed at SFO, I know exactly, every pilot saw that they landed short of the runway. Every pilot said, hey, Scotty, give her more. I'm giving it all she's got, Captain. The reason they crashed was it takes 6 seconds for those engines to spool and advance throttle and push that airplane another 20 feet. And all those lives would have been saved. Every pilot on Earth read that NTSB report. We know in the checklist what to look for. We know the root cause. So the phone call, we need to talk. Couldn't get out of it. I was doing some stuff with Civil Air Patrol at the time. I was talking to the other pilots there. Oh my gosh, how hard they laughed at me for taking off without permission. They wanted to make patches called the Red Light Club, even though I couldn't see the red light where they blink and say, don't do it! Oh goodness, it was a bad day. I had a decision to make. Do I lawyer up? Do I hide behind an attorney? How do I protect my passion? How do I get to do the things I want to do and continue flying? Or do I pull out my pilot's license? Just kidding, I haven't got it in the mail yet. But I think about my dad, and I think about Amelia Earhart, and I think about all of these people that I know and love that fly today, and all the people that came before me and paid for my mistakes with their lives. And how do I honor them? I went to meet with the NTSB, and I had an open-handed conversation. These are the facts. They are undisputed. I'm going to put myself at your mercy because I want to protect this system. I'm thankful for the privilege to be a part of this. And I'm willing to pay for my actions. But please protect the other pilots. Please protect what I care for. You see, the Federal Aviation Administration, and the Flight Standards District Office, and the National Traffic Safety Board, they have outputs that don't just affect my life and my dad's life as a pilot, or his neighbor Harold as a commercial airliner pilot for United. No, it affects everything else. So these initial investigation reports, we already have the initial facts of the conditions surrounding Harrison Ford's crash. It's only been a couple weeks. It'll take another year for them to run all the way to the ground what the core failure was. They're going to tear apart the engine to be sure, 100% sure. The after-accident investigation report, it does take a year to run things to the ground. How many of you guys do full post-mortem and root cause analysis after an incident in your organization? Handful of you. It takes a lot of time. But the output, if you can make that actionable, we have a communication problem. You see, the threat intel people and the incident response team and the architects that work with IT often speak very different languages. Airworthiness directives. You drive a car, you drive a motorcycle. You've heard of recalls. That's the civilian term. For those of us that fly go-karts in the sky, we get airworthiness directives. something that's a known failure, known to cause an issue. Sometimes it's actually a firmware update for my GPS. I didn't do anything different. But there was something I could have done. You see, planes have, most of the time, 2 radios, and I could have flipped on the other radio. It didn't have all the fancy GPS kung fu and software that probably booted wrong or did something, I don't know. Computers have a mind of their own sometimes. And I added that to my checklist. But I told the investigator, I'm like, look, please don't clip my wings. I want to fly. But at the same time, do what you have to do. Let's protect the system. So they're going to issue notices to airmen. They're going to issue airworthiness directives. They're going to work with the manufacturers. I believe that information about vulnerabilities and this sort of stuff is public domain. I think this is stuff you and I need to know about to do our jobs and be effective. But I had this moment of clarity when I realized my inaction dooms others to repeat and pay for my failures. So let's make this thanks for nothing the last time you do that, yeah? So knowing starts with a foundation of hard evidence. It's almost a birthday. How excited are you for this? This thing should be coming out. I don't know when. Soon, I hope. You guys read the DBIR? You know what the DBIR is, right? This is the most important thing you read this year. Read it. It's coming. Get excited about it. There's one deficiency. There's one flaw that needs addressed. It lacks root cause. They do a really good job of trying to say, hey, look, this issue can be mapped to these sorts of controls from the SANS Top 20, and we're going to fix that. We, the respectful royal we. I don't speak for Bob Rudis or Verizon or any of the rest of the DBIR team, and they are brilliant people, and we love them. But there's something we, as a community, need to give them that they don't have today. You see, in this false economy of secrets, there's information that isn't being shared. And there's a variety of reasons for that. And with a few minutes remaining, I'm going to start a fight with you. You ready? I want you to share data. Was this not readily apparent? There's a spectrum here, and I couldn't find a good way to get all these words onto a spectrum without really small print, so I'm sorry. Take a minute to study this. This should be as minimally invasive as possible through what should give you nightmares. Coming from Black Hat, I had a very intimate appreciation for operational security and for privacy and data custodianship and protecting things that I don't always see relationships to. Now, I'm not proposing that we help the NSA stand up a syslog service where we could just send our logs off to so they can help us out and provide backup and analysis and security incident and event management for us. If they were smart, they would have. I'm going to propose that this is a poor model, but it's a starting point for a conversation. There's a spectrum here where when we start talking about threat intel, we can talk about actors, known IP ranges they're coming from, domains that they're interacting with. You know, your standard indicator of compromise list starts with file names, hashes, domain names, IP addresses, and ports. That's like your well-balanced diet, right? Well, if we don't share that information, they're not going to know about it. And as long as they don't know that we know that they're doing this, so they don't know that we know, they're not going to do anything about it, right? But if we publish it, then they'll have to change, and they'll have no IPs, and then we won't know what they know, you know? Cool. Share it. Put it out there. You're telling me that they've spent all this time looking for an exploit, buying an exploit kit, building a crimeware kit, getting access, a toehold in your environment. It's phoned home to their command and control server, that C2 server. Command and control, and they've got a toehold in our environment. So rather than telling your friends to your left and your right and the rest of our community about that information because they might change command and control servers, you're going to sit on it? This false economy of secrets is raising their return on investment. By putting this information out there, not only can we pull them out of our environments, but we're going to force them to move. You see, with more complexity comes the higher likelihood of human error. Not only does it raise their cost of operating and their additional infrastructure, it raises the number of touch points they have. It raises the likelihood that they're going to make a mistake, which means raises the likelihood that they may get caught. Now, who here does work without an NDA? Exactly. Nobody. We all do this stuff, whether it's with our employer or for our customers. all the information we come into contact with is locked up. We're going to have conversations about what that looks like. Now, Congress is working on stuff that's going to determine how information sharing and what information sharing permitted is going to look like. So, in parting, a real quick reflection. I believe that our place and role in this industry is an honor and a privilege to be a part of. I'm proud of the work we do, and I know that we're still making a lot of this up as we go, but we're working hard to continue maturing, and we're doing so rapidly, much like aviation has. Knowing is a hard thing. Getting to a place where we know and have a body of confidence is going to take some work. I think a lot of the time we're operating on our gut, flying from the seat of our pants. I think we have the ability to pay this information forward and find ways to do that, and we can change this problem. I want to learn from the experience from others. I know that you do. I certainly don't want to doom others to repeat my actions. So my call to action is very, very simple. And if you need help with this, reach out. But I want you to talk to your boss, and I want you to talk to your general counsel. I want you to get permission to share at least compromised information. There are anonymous channels, there are ways to provide this information to Verizon to help expand that report, but we should flood that report. We need to make more information available. This isn't full packet captures, this isn't forensic images, this is literally passing on information that will help others make informed decisions. Could you imagine having a discussion? Imagine a world where all of you have done this, and in 3 years, you sit down with the sysadmin team saying, hey, look, we need to push this patch in 30 days. Well, you don't understand what that's going to take. That's totally going to change our change management practices. It's going to be a giant mess. You don't even know what you're talking about. Let me use small words and talk slowly for you, because I have the data. This year's DBIR, I'm not speaking on behalf of Verizon. It's not this year's report. We're in 5 years from now. I can show you evidence that if we wait more than 46 days to push a patch, our likelihood of compromise goes through the roof. And here's the data. If we can push more information into this report, if we can push root cause and control information where we failed into this report, we can continue to mature this industry. Thanks for having me. I think I landed on time. I think we're supposed to wrap up at 1:15. We're on the money. You've got 15 minutes if you've got questions. We're here to play. If not, have fun today.